I never shouted, never slammed a door. I just waited until the sedative showed up in a toxicology report with my name on it. They say a mother's love is quiet, not because she has nothing to say, but because everything she does speaks for her. That was me. My name is Miriam, and I came from a sleepy coastal town where the waves knew my worries before I ever said them aloud. I didn't grow up with much no family fortune, no safety net, but I had grit. And when my husband passed away, leaving me alone with a 12-year-old boy and a mortgage that looked more like a mountain, I didn't flinch. I went to work, literally. I baked bread at night and scrubbed strangers' sinks by day. My body hurt. My spirit cracked sometimes. But I smiled when I packed Aaron's lunch, and I prayed while folding his socks that life would be kind to him even if it wasn't to me. Aaron was my whole world, my quiet joy. He used to help me fold laundry and say, "Don't worry, Mama. One day I'll take care of you." And I believed him. Not because I was naive, but because that's the kind of boy he was. Kind-eyed, observant, the type who'd offer his last slice of cake if you looked tired enough. We had each other. We didn't need more, until Celeste came along. She wasn't a bad person, at least not on the surface. She was polished magnetic, the kind of woman who turned heads when she laughed. The first time Aaron brought her home, I wanted to like her. No, I tried to like her. Because Aaron's eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in years. And any woman who made him happy had to be worth embracing, right? But you can love someone and still miss the moment they start slipping away. Looking back now, I can trace the very second our world shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't tragic. It was subtle, like a change in wind before a storm. She didn't just marry my son. She redefined him, rewrote what family meant in his life. And I didn't realize I was being erased until the space I used to fill grew quiet. Too quiet. And from that silence, everything else began. At first, I thought I was just tired. Tired from too many years spent surviving, from trying to stay strong for a son who'd always been my reason to wake up. So when Aaron brought home Celeste, all poised grace and glossy charm, I didn't let the discomfort settle. I brushed it away like dust on a windowsill. Celeste was captivating. The kind of woman who walks into a room and makes you feel like the wallpaper. She had this laugh high precise, just unrestrained enough to feel natural, just sharp enough to feel rehearsed. Her voice was soft like honey on warm toast. She complimented my cooking. She asked about the town. She even told me my hands looked strong, said it in a way that made me smile at first, until I wondered if she meant aged. Still, I told myself I was being too sensitive. I wanted to be the mother who welcomed her son's choice with open arms. I wanted to be that version of myself. So I smiled, I listened, I laughed when she joked about how adorable our little cottage was, even though the way she wrinkled her nose when she said it made something in my stomach twist. I let it slide when she offered to help me organize my spice rack, then gently pushed my jars aside like they belonged in a garage sale. I made room for her, in my home, in my heart, but there's a difference between opening a door and letting someone walk right over you. The shift didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started with the small things phrases that sounded sweet, but landed like paper cuts. Once I offered her my famous lemon pie for dessert. She smiled that perfect smile and said, "Oh, you still bake? That's so precious. My generation just orders from the artisanal place downtown. Precious." That word stung more than she knew. Another time she asked me what book I was reading, then blinked slowly and said, "Oh, that one." My college professor said it was dated. I nodded, said nothing. But I remember setting the book down afterward and never picking it up again. But it wasn't until I met her mother, Veronica, that I realized the problem wasn't just Celeste. It was where she came from. Veronica didn't bother with subtlety. She was regal in that cold, hard marble sort of way. Expensive perfume, designer scarf, the kind of woman who spoke slowly as if the world needed time to catch up. She met me at their engagement dinner and didn't even offer a handshake. Just nodded. Once. Like I was a waitress. The first thing she said to me was, "I've heard so much about your charming little life." And she said, "Charming the way you say pitiable." At dinner, she leaned in, smiled for the cameras, and whispered to Aaron, "Not to me, never to me." "Are you sure about this, darling? I mean, marrying into such humble stock has its risks." I sat still, hands folded in my lap. I heard every word, and I watched my son laugh awkwardly and say, "Mom's great. She raised me on her own." And I smiled too, because what else was I supposed to do? Stand up and shout across the table, remind her that while she wore silk, I once wore rubber gloves to scrub hotel toilets so her future son-in-law could eat dinner? No. I just tucked the comment somewhere deep, alongside all the others. But from that night forward, things changed. Celeste started showing up with her mother more and more. They'd arrive together, both wrapped in elegance and condescension. They'd bring fancy wine I couldn't pronounce, make light jokes about my quaint furniture, ask if I'd ever tried yoga. It helps keep the hips from stiffening up, you know. I laughed when I had to. I nodded when I was expected to. But inside, I started to feel like a guest in my own family. Aaron was caught in the middle, I think, at least at first. I don't blame him for being dazzled. Celeste made everything look easy, effortless. But that's the thing about performances. They're only seamless until you know what to look for. And I started looking. She corrected him in front of me often. Tiny things. No, Aaron. We met in April, not March. Don't you remember? Or, babe, you always forget things like this. It's cute. He would laugh, shrug, kiss her hand. But I saw it, the small shift in his shoulders, the way his smile dimmed for half a second. Then she moved on to correcting me. Actually, Miriam, the new studies show that turmeric doesn't really help arthritis. It's mostly a placebo. Oh, Miriam, you're so funny. My friends say the same things. When their moms get tired, you still watch cable. That's adorable. We'll get you a streaming box, promise. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like everything about me was a relic, useful but outdated. And her mother was always nearby watching with those ice blue eyes, sitting at family gatherings like a queen surveying the village, whispering to Celeste behind linen napkins. Once I caught her looking at me from across the living room and smirking, just a little, just enough. You ever feel the air shift when someone enters a room? Not colder, not warmer, just different. That's what it felt like when Celeste and her mother were around. Like the oxygen had been measured and I was taking up too much of it. Still, I held my place. I told myself it was just growing pains, that once they were married things would settle, but I didn't realize they weren't planning to settle me in. They were planning to push me out. And all those smiles, they weren't kindness. They were strategy. And I was the target. You would think a wedding is about love, about unity, about two families coming together, stitching their histories into something new, something shared. That's what I believed too. But Aaron and Celeste's wedding wasn't about coming together. It was about drawing lines, quietly, carefully, and I was placed on the other side of them. It started with the planning. Or more accurately, the lack of it, at least when it came to me. I remember asking gently, "Do you need help with the invitation?" Celeste smiled and said, "Oh no, we've already handled it." "Everything's digital now, Miriam." Veronica added, "Yes, these days, everything's streamlined. We don't want it to get too cluttered. I suppose that's what I had become to them. Unnecessary. When they picked the venue, I wasn't consulted. When they chose the flowers, the food, the music, nothing. I was handed a dress code in an email. Formal, but muted, please. No bright colors. Muted. That word echoed through me. I bought a soft gray dress. Something modest, respectable. The kind of thing a mother wears when she's trying not to overshadow anyone. I even brought a wrap in case the evening turned cool. It didn't, but I still clutched it all night, like a shield. On the day of the wedding, I arrived early. I always do. I wanted to find my place physically, emotionally. I wanted to catch a glimpse of Aaron before everything changed. The venue was breathtaking, a converted winery overlooking the coast bathed in golden light. Every detail had been curated: eucalyptus garlands, hand-lettered signage, imported crystal stemware, and not a single thing about it felt like him. I wandered searching for my name on the seating chart. It wasn't at table 1. That was reserved for immediate family. Instead, I found myself tucked into table 6, near the back, beside Celeste's distant cousin and a woman from her Pilates class. I sat quietly, folded my napkin in my lap, and told myself not to make it about me. But then came the part that did break me. The music swelled, guests turned, and Celeste appeared arm in arm with Veronica. Her mother walked her down the aisle like it had always been the plan. Like Aaron never had a father. Like I was just a face in the crowd. I stood up from my second row seat and felt the absence of my husband like a physical weight beside me. He would have squeezed my hand in that moment, told me to breathe. Instead, I just watched frozen as Aaron looked up at his bride with a smile so full it nearly undid me. But he never looked back at me. Not once. And then during the vows, when the officiant asked who had shaped him into the man he was today, Aaron thanked his teachers, his coaches, his support system, and then he said it. "Thank you, Miriam, for everything. Not mom, not mother, just Miriam," like I was someone he once knew. The room didn't react. No one noticed the fracture. But inside me something snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet split like glass under pressure. I smiled. I always smiled, even as the pieces shifted inside me. At the reception, I took my place again near the back. I clapped politely when speeches were made. I toasted with a glass of sparkling water because no one had asked if I preferred champagne. And when Celeste's best friend made a joke about how Veronica basically planned the entire wedding, everyone laughed, except me. Because it was true, I had been erased from my son's biggest day, not with cruelty, but with strategy, with decorum, with silk gloves, and 1,000 perfect details that had no room for a mother like me. After dinner, Veronica came over. Her dress shimmered in the low lights. Her perfume smelled expensive and foreign. She leaned down, placed a cold hand on my shoulder, and said, "You should be proud. He's made such a good match. And don't worry, Celeste will take wonderful care of him now." It was meant as reassurance, I think. But all I heard was the final nail in a door they had quietly closed behind me. "He doesn't need you anymore. She'll take it from here." And in that moment, I didn't just feel left out. I felt replaced. I walked out to the terrace alone. The music thumped softly behind me. Laughter, toasts, the clinking of glasses. I looked up at the night sky, so vast, so still, and I whispered a question I never thought I'd ask. Where did my son go? Because the boy I raised, the boy who used to tuck thank you notes into my apron pocket, who once cried when I missed his school play, he wouldn't have let me fade like this. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe love doesn't disappear all at once. Maybe it dissolves. One polite decision at a time, one missed seat, one changed name. And as I stood there alone beneath a sky too big to hold my ache, I realized something. I wasn't just mourning a wedding. I was mourning a goodbye. One I hadn't been told was happening, but one that had already taken place. After the wedding, I told myself things would settle. That once the glitter faded and the guests were gone, maybe Aaron would find his way back to me. Maybe the distance I felt that day was just ceremonial, a formality, temporary. But the distance didn't close. It stretched. Subtle at first, missed calls, late replies, canceled visits. Then it hardened into something colder, something I didn't have words for. And then my body began to change. I remember the first time it happened. We were at their new apartment. Celeste had insisted on hosting a dinner, her version of starting fresh. The table was spotless, the food arranged like something from a magazine. She handed me a glass of red wine with a slice of orange and said, "Try this, Miriam. It's one of my favorites. Great for circulation. I took a sip, smiled, tried to blend in. But by the time dessert came, my vision had gone slightly blurry. My hands trembled just enough to notice, and there was this fog in my mind, like I'd walked into a room and forgotten why I was there. I brushed it off. Maybe I hadn't eaten enough. Maybe I was tired. It had been a long day, but it kept happening. Once at brunch, Celeste served me chamomile tea with honey. Within the hour, I was lightheaded and struggling to focus. Another time, it was a smoothie green detoxifying, she called it. I barely made it home before I collapsed into bed for hours, my limbs heavy, my thoughts distant. Each time the symptoms were quiet, confusing, not enough to panic, but just enough to feel off, like my body was a radio slightly out of tune. So I did what most women my age are taught to do. I blamed myself. Stress, I said. Menopause, maybe. The aches of aging. I went to my doctor, then another. Blood tests, scans, neurological checks, all normal. Your vitals look great, Miriam, they said. You're just probably tired. But I knew tired. I had been tired for most of my adult life, working double shifts, raising a son alone, paying bills with coins and prayer. This wasn't tired. This was something else. A different kind of unraveling. And it was always around them, always after she cooked. She poured. She insisted. You must be thirsty. You should try this vitamin. It helps with energy. And yet, I got weaker. I kept notes, quietly, discreetly. A little pocket calendar in my nightstand. I wrote down what I ate, what I drank, how I felt afterward. The pattern began to emerge, slow, faint, but steady. My worst days always followed their invitations. But I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Celeste was perfect. Pinterest perfect. She hosted fundraisers. She smiled at the mailman. She hugged me in front of guests and called me her second mom. Second mom. She said it with just enough sweetness to make me question my own bitterness. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I was just as they quietly suggested losing touch. And yet, my instincts kept whispering, softly at first, then louder. Something isn't right. The worst part wasn't the fatigue or the dizziness, it was the self-doubt. The way it crept into my bones made me second-guess every memory, every thought. I began forgetting words mid-sentence. I lost track of time in conversations. Once I put my keys in the refrigerator and stood crying in the kitchen because I couldn't remember why. I started to wonder, was I becoming the woman they subtly described, the one who needed help, who couldn't quite keep up? Veronica had started suggesting assisted living brochures. Not now, of course, she said, smiling. But it's always wise to plan ahead. Aaron never disagreed. He said I seemed off, and in a way I was, but not how they thought. I wasn't fading. I was waking up, slowly, painfully, but I was waking up. I started testing things, swapping cups when no one was looking, eating before I arrived, saying no to drinks. I noticed that on the days I avoided their food, the fog didn't come. My hands didn't shake. My thoughts stayed mine. Still, I said nothing. I knew accusation would only make me look paranoid. So I became an observer. I studied their habits. I watched how Celeste poured drinks only for me, how her tone changed when she thought no one was listening. I began to notice Veronica watching me too closely, like a cat watches a mouse. And Aaron had drifted so far from the boy I raised. He no longer asked about my health. He never noticed when I skipped meals. Once I told him I felt dizzy, and he laughed, said I needed more fresh air. He didn't see it. Or maybe he chose not to. Either way, I was alone. But I had something now. I had doubt. Not of myself, but of them. And from that doubt, I started building something. A timeline. A truth. A quiet thread of logic that ran underneath the surface of their perfect smiles. My body had been speaking long before my voice ever did. And finally, I was listening. Once I understood what my body had been trying to tell me, I knew I had a choice to make. I could speak and be dismissed as paranoid, or I could listen and start preparing. I chose silence, but not the passive kind, not the kind meant to keep peace at the cost of clarity. No, this silence was different. This was the silence of a woman who had survived too much to be gaslit into doubt. The silence of someone who knew that truth, when handled carefully, could be sharper than any accusation. So I began to write. It started with a notebook, spiral-bound plain cover, something I could tuck in a drawer without raising suspicion. I called it nothing, just a date on the front, but inside it became everything. Each entry was deliberate. The time I arrived at their house, what I was offered, who placed the plate in front of me, what it looked like, what it smelled like, the drink color, temperature, ingredients I could identify, what supplements were pushed into my hand with a gentle, "These help with memory, Miriam." And then, how I felt. 30 minutes later, 1 hour, 3 hours. I tracked the patterns, the weight in my limbs, the sharp drop in my thoughts, the way my vision softened at the edges like I was slipping out of my own life without making a sound. I documented it all, ruthlessly, quietly, because I didn't have evidence yet, but I was building it, piece by piece. I started photographing the pills Celeste handed me. At first they looked identical to the ones I had always taken, small, beige, chalky. But one day I opened my weekly pill case and paused. The tablets looked just slightly off. Same shape, same size, but the smell, it wasn't right. It was faintly metallic, bitter. The scent clung to my fingers even after I put the lid back on. I didn't take them that day. The next time I opened the case, 2 of the pills were crushed, almost powdered at the bottom. I hadn't touched them. Someone had. I didn't confront Celeste. I didn't ask Aaron. Because I knew where it would go. Miriam's confused again. She forgets. She misremembers. No, not this time. I started carrying a second pill case, one I controlled, one I kept hidden. I left the other as bait. I'd mark pills with tiny pen dots on the label. When one disappeared, I logged it. When they changed, I logged that too. And still I said nothing, because I was learning the art of patient defense. Not defense through yelling, but through proof. And it wasn't just the pills. I began watching the way Celeste prepared drinks, always with a flourish, always for me. She never poured for Veronica, never for Aaron, just me. Try this one, Miriam. It's lavender and honey, very calming, calming. As if my nerves were the problem. Sometimes I'd accept the cup, smile, carry it to the bathroom and pour it down the sink. Rinse, dry, return. Then I'd watch her reaction. Every time I came back feeling better, she would light up. See, I told you it helps. But I hadn't swallowed a drop. It told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't observing my health. She was testing my behavior. One evening she handed me a glass with rosemary sprigs floating in pink liquid and said, "You look tense today. This will help." I took it. But I didn't drink. Instead, I watched her watching me. And in her eyes, just for a second, I saw it. Expectation. She wasn't offering kindness. She was waiting for something to begin. I never blinked, and when she turned her head, I swapped the glass onto a tray and left it untouched. Later that night, I felt fine, clear, rested. My silence was working, and my journal was growing. I wrote every symptom, every interaction. I began printing timestamps from my home security camera, proof I left alone, and returned home sick only after visiting them. I took photos of every altered pill, every drink I poured down the drain. I stored everything in a shoebox labeled recipes, hidden at the back of my closet. Because this wasn't just about proving something to the world. It was about proving it to myself, that I hadn't imagined it, that I hadn't lost control, that I was still here, still aware, still me. One night, Veronica made a comment I'll never forget. It was movie night at their home, and I had brought my knitting, as I often did. It helped me think, helped me feel normal. She glanced at my needles and said, "Still keeping busy? That's good. Idle hands are the first sign the mind is slipping." She smiled. I didn't, because I understood what she was doing. They weren't trying to poison me quickly. They were trying to redefine me slowly, turn me into the confused, fragile woman no one would believe. They were building a case, a narrative, and all I had in return were pages of quiet truth. But it was enough, because I knew one day one small, precise moment would come, and when it did, I'd be ready. There's a moment just before a storm breaks where everything feels too still. That was the kind of silence that filled the room that morning. A family brunch, they called it. Just us, they said. Casual, cozy, familiar. But nothing about that day felt familiar to me. Not the forced laughter, not the overly perfect floral centerpiece, and certainly not the way Celeste looked at me when I walked through the door. She was already in the kitchen, dressed like she'd just stepped out of a magazine spread. Veronica sat perched at the island, sipping her usual red wine and humming along to a piano playlist. Aaron gave me a distracted hug, already checking something on his phone. "Good to see you," Miriam Celeste chirped. "I made something special for you." She always made something special, and it always came with a smile, just a little too wide a tone, just a little too sweet, like syrup hiding a bitter seed. I nodded, took off my coat, and watched her walk over to the bar cart. Her movements were graceful, practiced. Ice clinked, citrus-twisted sprigs of rosemary snapped between her fingers. She stirred with flair, like she was performing on a stage only she could see. Then she turned glass in hand and walked toward me. "This one's just for you," she said. "You're going to love it. I made it with gin rosewater and a little something to soothe your nerves." I took the glass. I smiled back, but something in my chest began to tighten, not with fear, but with certainty. I knew what this was, not a test, a moment, the moment I'd been preparing for quietly, page by page, dose by dose. I looked around the room. Veronica was laughing at something on her phone. Aaron was pouring coffee. No one was watching me except Celeste. She hovered nearby, eyes just a little too focused. I waited, and when she turned to adjust the table setting, I moved. No hesitation, no trembling hands. I reached across the sideboard where Veronica's identical glass sat, same color, same garnish, same rim of condensation, and I swapped them. Mine for hers, seamless, effortless. I returned to my seat and folded my hands in my lap. The glass now sat in front of Veronica just as casually as if it had always been hers. No one noticed. No one ever did. Brunch began. The usual chatter. Veronica bragging about her latest real estate ventures. Celeste talking about a new nutrition podcast. Aaron staring at his phone, chiming in, just enough to appear present. I took small bites of toast I had prepared myself. I drank only water. I smiled when appropriate. But inside I was counting. 35 minutes. That's how long it usually took. That was the pattern I'd tracked for months. The window between ingestion and symptom. The time between performance and consequence. At minute 20, Veronica began to blink more frequently. She rubbed at her forehead once, then again. At minute 25, she paused mid-sentence, something about quartz countertops, and lost her words. "Sorry," she laughed. "I think I stood up too fast earlier." Celeste glanced at her, her smile twitching just slightly. Minute 30. Veronica's cheeks flushed a deep, uneven red. She reached for her water and knocked it slightly, her hand unsteady. Aaron looked up from his phone. "Are you okay, Veronica?" "I'm fine," she said too quickly, too loudly. Then came minute 35. Her words began to slur. Not enough to panic the room, but enough to pull everyone's attention toward her. She shifted in her seat, tried to wave it off. "I'm just hot," she muttered. "Is it hot in here?" Celeste stood. "Mom!" That's when Veronica's hand clenched the edge of the table. Her knuckles white, her eyes wide. She tried to rise, then stumbled backward, knocking her wineglass to the floor. The room froze. Aaron rushed to her side. Celeste's voice cracked high and panicked. Call someone now," and I sat still, my hands in my lap, my eyes on the glass I never drank, because now they were all looking, but not at me, not yet. Veronica groaned. Her breath grew ragged. Celeste grabbed her phone and began dialing 911. Aaron was kneeling beside the woman who had spent years smirking at me from across tables, and as they panicked, I stood, quietly, deliberately. I walked over and picked up the glass, the one Celeste had handed me, the one now known for what it truly was. I held it in both hands, careful, steady. Aaron looked up. "Mom? What are you doing?" I met his eyes. "This," I said, "is the drink Celeste gave me." He blinked, confused. Celeste turned fast. Her eyes locked on the glass. And for the first time I saw it, the fear behind the mask. "No," she said quickly. That's not what I—" But she stopped herself, because the lie was collapsing faster than she could control it. The paramedics arrived minutes later. They asked what had happened, who had eaten what medications Veronica was on. Celeste scrambled to explain. "She's been stressed. She's been working too much. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe something didn't agree with her." I didn't say much. I simply handed the EMT the glass. "This was meant for me," I said softly. But I didn't drink it. The look on Celeste's face, like porcelain cracking, wasn't something I'll forget. Veronica was taken away on a stretcher, and I watched from the front porch, the breeze lifting my hair, my hands still steady. For over 2 years I had been unraveling silently. Now it was their turn. As the ambulance pulled away, a strange stillness fell over the house. Celeste stood by the kitchen island, gripping her phone like a lifeline, fingers trembling just enough to betray the calm she was trying so hard to project. Aaron lingered in the hallway, pale, confused, glancing between me and his wife, like he was waiting for someone to tell him what to feel. No one said anything, so I did what I came to do. I walked over to the kitchen table, reached into my purse, and pulled out my notebook, the one I had kept hidden for over a year, the one filled with handwritten dates, timed symptoms, the one they thought I'd never need because they believed I'd never have the courage to trust myself. I placed it gently on the counter, and then I turned to the young paramedic who had returned to collect preliminary statements. "I think you'll want this," I said. He opened it, flipped through a few pages, his brows furrowed, then lifted. "What is this?" he asked. "My records," I answered. "What I was served, when I felt unwell, what I suspect I was given, and what happened today." He didn't respond right away, just nodded slowly, respectfully. "We'll have the lab look into everything, including the glass I had just handed over, still 3/4 full, still untouched, but reeking faintly of something floral and wrong." Celeste was watching the whole exchange, frozen, like she didn't know which version of herself to become next. The sweet daughter-in-law, the concerned hostess, the victim Aaron tried to speak. "Mom, are you saying—" I looked at him, not with anger, not even hurt anymore, just the deep, weathered clarity of a woman who had been surviving in silence for too long. "I'm not saying anything I told him. The evidence will." And I walked out, not with drama, not with slammed doors, just a quiet, steady exit, my hands finally empty of what I'd been carrying for so long. It took less than a week for the toxicology report to return. The drink Celeste had made for me, the one I'd switched, contained a benzodiazepine derivative, a controlled sedative, the kind prescribed for anxiety, insomnia, or in higher doses used to confuse, disorient, and debilitate. Mixed with alcohol, it could impair memory coordination, even mimic early signs of dementia. There were also traces of the same compound found in the supplements I'd saved, the ones Celeste once handed me, smiling with a kiss on the cheek. When the detective called to inform me, his voice was firm. No unnecessary sympathy, just facts. "You were right to be suspicious, Mrs. Brennan. This is being taken seriously." I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just exhaled. And for the first time in years, that breath didn't feel borrowed. They questioned her days later. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. But I read the report. Celeste didn't confess all at once. Her story came in fragments, cracked by pressure, shaped by self-preservation. At first she said she only meant to help, that I'd seemed anxious, that she wanted me to rest more, that the vitamins were harmless. When asked why she never disclosed the pills or why she began handling my medications without my consent, her answers unraveled like a badly sewn seam. That's when the bigger picture emerged. She and Veronica had been documenting my behavior for months, subtle things, missed words, repeated phrases, moments of confusion that only occurred after I visited them. They'd been building a case, preparing to petition for guardianship, not out of care, but control. Control over my accounts, my home, my late husband's estate, the antique car collection in the garage, the retirement funds he and I had spent 40 years building together. Veronica had even met with an attorney claiming I was showing early signs of cognitive decline. They were planning to step in for my safety, of course. But the lab results told a different story. The story they tried to invent had turned on them. Because the real confusion wasn't in my mind. It was in the drinks they poured, the pills they handed over with false smiles. And when Celeste was confronted with the report, the chemical breakdown, the dosage levels, the supplements stored in evidence bags, she broke, not with an explosion, but with a silence of her own, a silence that meant, "You caught me." Aaron didn't speak for several minutes, according to the officer. He just sat blinking, jaw tight, the weight of what he had overlooked, what he had allowed to settle on his shoulders like bricks. And Veronica. She recovered after a brief hospital stay, but when she was informed of the sedative found in her bloodstream, she denied everything, claimed I had poisoned her, tried to flip the narrative, but the facts didn't support her fantasy, because no stranger had done this to her. She had simply swallowed the plan she helped create. Charges were filed. The legal wheels began to turn, slowly. But I didn't need a courtroom to feel my power return. Because in that moment, sitting in my small kitchen with the morning light streaming in, I knew something most people never get to know, that I wasn't crazy. I was right. And the silence I had held for so long, it wasn't weakness. It was strategy, it was survival, and finally, it was justice. I used to wonder what betrayal would sound like if it would come crashing in with slamming doors and raised voices. But it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes betrayal arrives softly, with hand-drawn birthday cards and lavender tea, with quiet sighs and just trying to help. It speaks in whispers and paperwork, and sometimes in legal petitions with your name on them. Celeste's confession didn't come all at once. It trickled out in pieces under pressure, under evidence, under the weight of something she could no longer talk her way around. She said it began as concern, that I had seemed tired, that I wasn't keeping up, that she noticed I struggled to find words or remember what I had said earlier in the day. She described it like it had been mercy, a gift. I thought maybe she just needed rest, she said. Something to calm her nerves, something to help her sleep. But the moment investigators asked why that help came in the form of unprescribed sedatives, why it was hidden in teas and cocktails, why it was never mentioned to Aaron or to my doctors, the story shifted, because concern doesn't need to be a secret, and neither does love. What unraveled next was something far more calculating. Celeste had not acted alone. Veronica, always so polished, so poised, was the architect behind it all. She'd watched me carefully from the beginning, measured my words, noted my pauses, gave subtle nods when Celeste interrupted me mid-sentence, or gently suggested I sit and rest instead of helping with dinner. And when I began forgetting things, small things only ever after being in their home, they were already collecting moments. They were building a file, one that portrayed me as fading, slipping, unreliable. They weren't preparing to care for me. They were preparing to control me. The guardianship petition had been drafted weeks before the brunch, where I switched the drinks. Celeste had already met with 2 lawyers. Veronica had lined up a doctor, someone who would evaluate me, someone with a friendly handshake and a willingness to read from a script disguised as a diagnosis. They had planned everything. Every dotted I, every polite phone call. They would say it was all out of love, of course. They would say Miriam needs help. Miriam is struggling. Miriam can't make sound decisions. And in one clean, quiet motion, they would become my legal caretakers. They would own my decisions, my finances, my home, the retirement accounts I'd protected for decades, the seaside cottage I'd nearly lost once after my husband died but clawed my way back into. Even my late husband's violin collection, 7 pieces each with history carved into the grain, each worth more than Celeste probably realized was noted in the financial attachments to the petition. I saw the drafts with my own eyes. Veronica had highlighted them. The violins, the notes said, insure appraisal included. It was never about helping me. It was about removing me, quietly, legally, elegantly, so they could take everything I had built, everything I had kept safe, everything I had bled for. When confronted, Celeste broke under the weight of her own denial. The shame in her eyes when the sedative report landed, when my notebooks were matched to symptoms, when the paper trail of her emails to attorneys were handed to the detective, wasn't regret. It was fear. Fear that the image she had crafted for years of the perfect wife, the compassionate daughter-in-law, the charming hostess, was disintegrating. Because it was, piece by piece. Aaron was in the room when the details were laid bare. He listened to every email read aloud, to every supplement bottle bagged and tagged, to every forged refill request that Celeste had made on my behalf. And still, he said nothing. Not at first. He sat with his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it might explain something his heart didn't want to admit. The detective said he didn't cry when Celeste confessed. He cried after, when they left, when he was alone, when it finally hit him that his wife hadn't just manipulated me, she had manipulated him too. And Veronica. She denied everything, claimed I had plotted the entire thing, that I'd poisoned her, that I was bitter, confused, vindictive. But Veronica underestimated one thing. Receipts. Paper doesn't lie. Test results don't care about denial. Emails, voice memos, pharmacy logs. They told the story she refused to admit. And that story was this. For 2 years, I had been slowly pushed out of my own life, through charm, through paperwork, through sedatives disguised as help, and I had survived it with silence and a pen. They had power, but I had patience. They had a plan, but I had time. And now finally, I had something stronger than rage-proof. There was no dramatic courtroom scene, no breaking news headline, just a report, a file, a quiet case moving through the legal system. But I didn't need an audience, because I wasn't trying to win in public. I was trying to reclaim my life in private, on my terms. And now, for the first time in years, that life belonged to me again. When the dust began to settle and the legal process slowly groaned into motion, I found myself staring out the window more often into the garden Aaron and I had once planted together. Back then, we filled it with tomato vines and wild daisies. Now the weeds had overtaken the corners, and most days the soil just sat still, waiting for something that wouldn't return. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I had waited long enough for justice, for acknowledgement, for someone to believe me. Now it was my turn to move. Not out of revenge, but clarity. That's when I called Thomas. He's been my lawyer for over 30 years. Back when my late husband and I bought our first home, a tiny 2-bedroom near the post office, with peeling shutters and dreams too big for our budget, Thomas was the one who helped us sign the papers. He was there when we refinanced, when we opened our first joint retirement fund, when we created the family trust after Aaron was born. He knew our story. He knew me. So when I walked into his office with 2 manila envelopes, one filled with documents, the other with a copy of the toxicology report, and a printed timeline of everything I'd been through, he didn't blink. He just nodded and said, "Tell me what you want to do." And I did. I told him I wanted to change my will, not amend it, not revise a few clauses, rewrite it entirely. I sat across from him, sunlight slanting through the blinds, and said the words I never thought I'd have to say out loud. I want Aaron and Celeste removed from everything. Thomas didn't ask why. He already knew. But I added, not because I hate them, Not because I want to hurt them, but because they chose to erase me slowly, strategically, and now I choose to erase their entitlement. It felt brutal at first, but necessary. You see, a legacy isn't just about wealth, it's about intention. And I wasn't about to leave mine in the hands of people who saw me as disposable. So we started, the house gone from the trust, to be sold with proceeds directed to a nonprofit senior housing initiative, one that offered shelter and dignity to women who had nowhere else to go. The violin collection appraised, cataloged, and donated to a music conservatory. 7 instruments each to be placed in the hands of a student who couldn't afford their own. Students who, like my husband once did, learned to speak emotion through strings instead of words. The retirement accounts redirected into a scholarship fund specifically for young caregivers. Teenagers, single mothers, women who gave up their own dreams to care for others. I wanted them to have second chances, the kind I never had when I was scrubbing floors to keep Aaron fed. I kept none of it for show. No press releases, no plaques with my name, just intention channeled into motion. And as I signed each page, each new instruction, each paragraph of legal severance, I felt something loosen inside me, like a rope around my chest finally unraveling. It wasn't vindictive, it was healing. Because I wasn't doing this to punish, I was doing it to plant something better in the space where betrayal had once lived. But there was one more decision to make. Clara, my granddaughter, she was only 6 at the time, too young to understand inheritance or betrayal or the way love can be manipulated until it resembles obedience. But she once climbed into my lap and whispered, "Grandma, your hugs make my heart stop hurting." And that was all I needed to know. She hadn't been touched by any of this yet, and I intended to keep it that way. So I created a trust. Locked, ironclad, untouchable by her parents. The funds would grow quietly until she turned 25. At that point, the entire remainder of the estate, what was left after the charities, after the donations, would be hers. But only if there was no legal or financial tie between her and her parents, no co-signatures, no joint management, no loopholes. Thomas made sure of it. If Aaron or Celeste tried to gain access, the trust would dissolve. The assets would go to charity instead. It was harsh, but necessary, because I had seen what they were willing to do for control, and I wasn't going to let them reach her, not through charm, not through guilt, not through her bank account. When we finished, Thomas slid the final document toward me, and I signed it with the same calm I once used to cut onions on Sunday afternoons or fold laundry at midnight. Not angry, just clear. When I left his office, the air felt different, lighter, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't look back over my shoulder, because I had taken back my name, my choices, my story, and the legacy I'd leave behind would not be written by the hands that tried to erase me. Aaron came to the house 2 days after the news broke, after the toxicology report was confirmed, after the legal papers were filed, after Veronica's face finally cracked under the weight of the lies she helped design. He didn't call ahead, he just showed up. I opened the door to find him standing there with his keys in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. His hair was slightly disheveled, and for the first time in years, he looked like the boy I used to know, the boy who used to drag a red wagon around the yard and fall asleep on the couch, with his head in my lap. Only now, he was smaller somehow, worn down. "Hi," he said. "Mom, can I come in?" I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. He walked in like he didn't recognize the house anymore, like even the walls had shifted. He sat in the chair where his father used to sit, rubbed his palms against his jeans like he was trying to thaw something frozen inside. "She didn't mean to hurt you," he said after a long pause. "Mom, you have to believe that." I looked at him, then really looked, and I realized something. I didn't know him anymore. Not this version. Not the man who had once trusted a lie more than his own mother's eyes. Not the man who had watched me vanish day after day and said nothing. He kept talking, fumbling through explanations, excuses, memories. He said Celeste was overwhelmed, that she thought I was struggling, that maybe she panicked and things got out of hand. that it wasn't about money or control or silencing me, that it was all just a misunderstanding. I listened to every word, not because I believed them, but because I needed to hear how far someone could stretch a lie before it became a story they could live with. When he finally stopped, he looked at me like he was waiting for forgiveness, and all I said was, "She drugged me, Aaron." His face fell, like he didn't expect to hear it spoken aloud, like he thought if we never used the word, it wouldn't be real. But it was. I stood up, walked slowly to the mantel. There was a photo there, him at 3 years old, sitting in a tiny red wagon, holding my hand, like it was the only thing keeping him steady in the world. I picked it up, turned it face down, and then I turned back to him and said, "I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Tired of asking to be believed, tired of pretending I'm okay, tired of smiling at people who would rather see me disappear quietly than make room for me at the table." He didn't argue. He just stared at the floor. "Will you come to the hearing?" he asked finally. I shook my head. "No, I've already lived it." When he left, he didn't hug me. He didn't look back. I watched his car disappear down the street, the same street I once taught him to ride his bike on, the one I used to shovel clear in the winter so he wouldn't slip on the way to school. That night I packed 2 bags, not with regret, just with what mattered. A few clothes, my journals, the sapphire necklace my husband gave me on our 20th anniversary, and a key to a house I no longer had reason to stay in. By morning I was gone. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't make a big announcement. I just left. Drove past the courthouse, past the memories, past the version of myself who had waited too long to be chosen. I found a small village by the sea, sunlit, quiet, forgetful in the best way. I rented a modest cottage with chipped paint ivy climbing the porch rail and a creaky screen door that let the ocean breeze drift through like it belonged there. The neighbors waved when they saw me, but they didn't ask questions. They didn't know I was the woman who had once been erased by her own family. To them, I was just Miriam, Miss Miriam, the lady who always bought 2 loaves of bread, one for herself, one for the birds. I planted herbs in the backyard, rosemary, basil, a little thyme. Every time I watered them, I thought about the drinks Celeste made me. And every time I watched them grow, I remembered I had survived, not just the poison, but the betrayal, the gaslighting, the slow, methodical erasure. And in this new place with its chipped paint and morning fog and unfamiliar skyline, I didn't rebuild out of revenge. I rebuilt because survival demands it. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away. Not in anger, not in fear, but in truth. I didn't block Aaron's number, but I didn't answer his texts either. He messaged every few weeks. "Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. I'm sorry." But not once did he say he believed me. Not once did he say he left her. So I stayed gone. Because forgiveness isn't always a door you open. Sometimes it's the door you close gently behind you with the keys still in your pocket. I never thought silence could feel so full. That the absence of noise, of chaos, of apology could actually feel like peace. But in that little coastal village where the tide whispered and the gulls cried like children returning home, I learned something I never had the chance to learn in all my years of giving, bending, and enduring how to exist without begging to be seen. Each morning I woke before the sun. I'd wrap a soft shawl around my shoulders, boil water for tea, and sit by the window to watch the sky shift from ash to gold. My journal stacked neatly beside me no longer held records of symptoms or betrayals, but tiny reflections, a child laughing at the market, the way the ocean curled like fingers pulling back secrets. The first rosebud opening in the garden I never thought I'd plant again. But healing isn't passive. It doesn't arrive just because you escape. You have to choose it. So I did. I signed up to volunteer twice a week at the community center just down the road, a small warm place nestled between a bakery and a post office, where people who had been forgotten came to remember themselves. On Tuesdays, I helped organize music lessons for local children, many of them shy, some from broken homes, a few who had never touched an instrument before. I'd tune their borrowed violins, often scratch strings too loose, and show them how to hold the bow not like a weapon, but like a whisper. Some of them had hands that trembled like mine once did. But I would smile and say, even trembles can make music. On Thursdays, I sat with the elderly, people like Mrs. Raymond, who used to be a stage actress but now forgot what year it was. Or Walter, a widower, who hadn't spoken much since his wife passed and only perked up when you mentioned jazz. I brought tea and warm bread. I brought my presence. Sometimes that's all people really need. I didn't tell them my story. I didn't talk about Celeste or the pills or the hearing that never happened. But sometimes when I spoke, people tilted their heads and said, "There's something in your voice, like you've walked through fire and came out with a map." And I would smile gently because I had. Then one afternoon, while sorting sheet music for the summer recital, I overheard two staff whispering in the break room. Veronica's name floated through the doorway like a ghost I hadn't invited. "She's been committed," one of them said in a private facility upstate. Something about delusions, paranoia, medication misuse. There was a beat of silence. Then the other added, "Her daughter doesn't visit anymore. Cut ties completely." I stood still. The paper in my hands trembled not from fear, but from memory. Veronica, the woman who had once sneered at my thrifted shoes, who called my grief a lifestyle choice, who poured poison into her daughter's ambition and taught her how to sharpen charm into a blade. I waited for the wave of satisfaction to come. It never did. Instead, I felt something softer, like a thread loosening, closure maybe, not justice, not revenge, but a chapter turning quietly, the way dusk arrives, not with fanfare, but inevitability. I said nothing. I placed the sheet music on the table, then stepped outside into the garden where the lavender had just begun to bloom. That evening I lit a candle, not for Veronica, but for the version of me that died under her gaze, the one who tried so hard to be palatable, lovable, and visible enough to survive. I whispered, "You're free now." And I meant it. By summer's end, I had a new rhythm. I taught a boy named Malik to play Vivaldi by ear. I showed Mrs. Raymond how to dance again, just small steps, but her eyes lit up like footlights. I planted mint wildflowers and one stubborn olive tree behind the cottage. I wore earrings again, and lipstick, and sometimes when I walked through town, people would wave and say, "Miss Miriam, your scarf looks beautiful today." They didn't know what I had survived. They just saw who I had become. One afternoon, I walked to the ocean alone. The tide was low, the wind warm. I sat on the sand and took out my journal. I wrote, "I am not a victim. I am not what they tried to make of me. I am not the silence they mistook for weakness. I am a woman reborn. I am a mentor. I am music and memory and morning tea. I am here, and I am not afraid." I closed the journal. The waves clapped softly like an audience that had waited too long for the truth, and the sky, as if on cue, opened up with gold. I was folding clean linens when I heard the knock. 3 soft taps, hesitant, uncertain. I almost didn't answer. The ocean breeze had been especially kind that morning, and I was savoring the quiet, the space I'd carved for myself after so much unraveling. But something about that rhythm, 3 gentle knocks, made me pause, made me remember. I opened the door. Aaron stood there, older, thinner. His eyes, once so full of certainty and charm, looked like someone else's, now dimmed, maybe even frightened. He held his hands clasped like a boy trying to prove he hadn't broken something. But we both knew he had. "Mom," he whispered, then paused. "Can I still call you that?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him, the son I once sang lullabies to in the middle of the night, the one I shielded from cold winters with my own threadbare coat, the boy who stopped calling me Mom the day Celeste walked down the aisle in white. Now here he was, standing in front of my sunlit cottage with nothing in his hands but regret. "I don't want anything," he said quickly, reading my silence like scripture. "I'm not here for money or property. I wanted to see you. I wanted to say, I'm sorry." I nodded slowly, letting the moment stretch. He continued, voice trembling, She's gone. Celeste took everything. The joint accounts, the car, the condo in Phoenix, even the dog. I blinked. A friend of hers said she's in Costa Rica now. New name, new life, no forwarding address. He laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. I thought I was building a future. Turns out I was digging my own grave. I said nothing. What was there to say that hadn't been carved into me already? I lost everything, Mom, he whispered. But losing you, that was the worst part. I finally stepped aside, letting him into the small living room. Tea was already steeping on the table, and the light caught on the crystal jar of honey like it always did. He sat across from me like a man facing judgment. I know what we did, he said, his voice growing quieter. I know how far it went, how blind I was, how cruel. I thought I was protecting a future, but I was killing the only person who ever truly loved me. He looked down at his hands. I can't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hoped just maybe I could fix something. Start over. We could rewrite the will. I'd never touch a dime, I promise. But the violin collection, Dad's violin, I'd want it to go to a museum in his name. The scholarship maybe I could contribute. I looked at him then, really looked, not as a mother desperate to believe in her child, not as a woman still bleeding, but as someone whole. And I said softly, Aaron, forgiveness is not a prize, it's not a right. He looked up. It's a path I continued, and not everyone is invited to walk it. His eyes welled. For years I lived under the illusion that love meant sacrificing everything, that if I just gave enough, forgave enough, stayed quiet enough, I could hold this family together. I shook my head. But love is not a leash, and forgiveness is not a key you're handed because you knocked. He opened his mouth, closed it, nodded. I see that now, he said. I miss you. I sipped my tea. I miss the boy you were, I said gently. But that boy grew into a man who watched his mother fade and said nothing, who chose silence over loyalty, who let charm rewrite truth. He buried his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. I didn't reach out. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. After a while, he stood. I'll go, he said. Thank you for seeing me. At the door, he hesitated. Do you think we'll ever... I shook my head, not harshly, just honestly. Some doors don't close, I said, but they don't reopen either. They just become part of the house. He nodded, and then he walked away. The wind picked up again. I returned to the kitchen, took out a fresh page in my journal, and wrote, Today the past came to visit. It knocked gently. I answered not with anger, but with truth. The door closed without slamming, and I did not look back. Outside, the waves continued, and inside, for the first time in a long time, I felt no weight at all. After Aaron left that afternoon, the house was quiet again, just as I liked it. The kettle had gone cold, and the sky had turned a soft silver blue, like linen dried in sea air. I sat by the window with a single lamp, casting its golden light across the floor, and I opened the drawer where I kept the letter, the one I had rewritten 5 times, the one meant for Clara. Clara, my granddaughter. She was only 6 the last time I saw her. Soft curls, quick laughter eyes like her father's, but a smile that was all her own. At the time, she didn't understand the storm she was born into. She only knew I gave her ginger cookies and let her play the old violin, even though it was always out of tune. But children grow, and truths when buried tend to bloom in their own way. That's why I wrote the letter, not out of bitterness, not to pass down wounds wrapped in ribbon, but to give her something no one else could steal: perspective, protection, and power. The letter was simple, really. Tucked inside a linen envelope, hand-addressed in ink, sealed with a piece of blue wax that bore the impression of a tiny seashell, one Clara had found on the beach the day before her 3rd birthday. She'd handed it to me and said, "This one is yours, Grandma. It's soft." I never told her that seashell stayed in my drawer for years. I only told her in the letter, "By the time you read this, you'll be 25, and by then life will have begun whispering its secrets to you. Some sweet, some hard. This letter isn't here to answer all your questions, Clara. It's here to remind you that you can ask them, that you have permission to walk away from anyone who tries to dim your light, no matter how softly they speak, even if they call it love. I had rewritten my will with Thomas, my lawyer and oldest friend, the week after Celeste vanished. We'd talked through every detail, every loophole, every trap a clever manipulator could attempt. The violin collection donated to a nonprofit that taught music to children with incarcerated parents. The house sold and the funds placed in a trust. The trust assigned to Clara a loan with conditions. She could access it once she turned 25, not earlier, not through a guardian, not even her parents. She'd receive it only after attending a financial literacy course taught by a women's foundation I once volunteered with, and only if she signed a declaration written in plain English that she understood the difference between support and control. Was it excessive? Perhaps. But when you've been drugged with affection and poisoned with politeness, you learn to prepare protection like armor. I didn't want Clara to inherit money. I wanted her to inherit freedom, the kind that isn't flashy or loud, the kind that whispers to you at 3 a.m. and says, "You are allowed to begin again." That night I added a postscript to the letter, "You don't owe anyone your silence, Clara, not even the people who gave you your name. A woman's loyalty should never cost her her clarity. You don't have to stay just because someone says you should. Walk away, walk tall, walk free." I folded it carefully, pressed the wax seal shut again, and placed it back into the small oak box alongside a photograph of her holding my hand, her face lit by morning sun. The next morning I gave the box to Thomas for safekeeping. "Deliver this only if I'm gone," I said. He raised a brow but nodded. "You sure you don't want to say all this in person someday?" I smiled gently. "If she finds me, I'll know it's because she came on her own, not because someone brought her out of guilt." He understood. I spent the next few months simply living. I painted again, nothing professional, just the ocean, the sky, my garden. I taught violin to 2 local children whose father worked nights. I learned to make cinnamon bread without looking at a recipe. I laughed more often than I cried. And when I stood at the edge of the sea one afternoon, my toes buried in warm sand, I whispered a prayer not to any god, but to the wind. Let her know she's not alone. Let her strength arrive before her wounds run too deep. Let this story reach her not as a warning, but as a map. Because in the end, this legacy wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about teaching anyone a lesson. It was about breaking the cycle, about passing down something I never received permission. Permission to speak, permission to leave, permission to choose peace, even if it meant choosing yourself alone. And in that, I knew they could take the house, the money, the illusion of family. But they could never take this letter, never take what it meant, because some legacies aren't written in dollars. They're written in truth. And that, no one can steal. People always imagine justice as something loud: courtrooms, confrontations, raised voices that shake walls. But that was never my way. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't set fires to the lies they built. I just waited. I waited while they laughed at my silence, while they planned behind closed doors and called it concern. I waited while they mistook my stillness for weakness and my kindness for permission. But time has a way of clarifying things, like the tide pulling back to reveal what's been buried beneath. Veronica institutionalized after a breakdown no one saw coming except me. Celeste gone, vanished with her polished lies and empty promises, and Aaron, my son, once the center of my universe, now only a visitor to my past. They tried to erase me, tried to rewrite the narrative with me conveniently removed, but they lost access to my heart, to my home, to everything they once assumed was theirs to control. And me, I found something deeper than justice. I found peace, a peace that doesn't require permission, a voice that doesn't need to echo to be heard, a self-worth that no one, not a husband's death, not a manipulative daughter-in-law, not even a misguided son, could touch anymore. There's power in quiet resistance, in the woman who keeps showing up to her own life, when others want her erased. In the one who chooses clarity over chaos. In the grandmother who plants seeds she'll never see bloom but plants them anyway. That woman is me. And if you're listening to this, perhaps that woman is you too. Because survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that refuses to fade. A step forward taken in bare feet. A breath drawn in silence that says, I am still here. And I choose me. There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't leave bruises but leaves a scar no one can see. What Miriam's story reminded me is that silencing an elder is one of the quietest forms of cruelty in modern society. We talk so much about progress, yet we still allow manipulation to hide behind polished smiles and good intentions. How often are mothers, especially aging women, pushed into corners of invisibility, deemed too emotional, too irrelevant, too much? Miriam wasn't perfect. She was human. But her love was real, and her silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. She didn't fight with fists. She fought with grace, with patience, and with proof. In a world addicted to noise, she chose truth. We need to talk more about how aging women are treated not just in inheritance disputes, but in conversations in households and family decisions. We need to stop mistaking sacrifice for disposability, because legacy isn't just money, it's voice, it's memory, it's the right to be seen after giving your whole life to others. And if this story moved you even just a little, don't stay silent. Speak up in the comments, share your thoughts, your outrage, your hope. Let's give a voice to every woman like Miriam who was told to sit down, stay quiet, and disappear. She didn't, and neither should you.